Three mistakes that you see electrical subcontractors make on a construction site. What would you say they are?
The main thing I think that any subcontractor does wrong is that they think, don't worry, I know this, I can do this. Prepare for this particular contract.
Yes. Welcome to Relay Radio, where everyday life meets the wire. And we have a very special guest, someone very near and dear to my heart, in the studio, actually in person this time. Our very first in-person episode, trying to put together something on the fly here. But my very own blood father, my biological father, is in the studio.
Thank you. I
with me.
appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. This is a special moment and it's been long coming.
Yes, long time. So we just thought very impromptu to have a bit of a discussion. And my father, Gideon Le Gange, has been in the construction industry for a very, very long time. And most of what I have learned over time has been from him.
Well, I'd say that I don't think if you'd learned it from me, I think I was hoping that I was the impetus too. But the fact is, yes, 27 years plus. And then we've been very lucky and blessed to the fact that the 16th of March, Le Gange Projects, my own company, has been 10 years old.
Sure.
So coming along a decade.
Yes, exactly that. And if you had to maybe sum it up in 60 seconds, I wouldn't say or less, but around 60 seconds, if you had to highlight your career till now in the construction industry.
I think I've been blessed and lucky that way. And my old adage was always that be the best tool in whoever's toolbox you are to be and stay applicable and also wanted. And being my own nature, I've been that type of person. So I've always tried to be the best tool. And I've in my mind many a times wanted to step back from construction, but I get up the next morning and I think, okay, Gideon, what are you going to do today? I'm going to go, I'm bold because that's what I do, what I love. And that's what I know. So 27 years down the line, up and downs and privileges of, but we've been very blessed and very lucky that way.
Sure. That's amazing. You know what they say about luck, and Gary Player is always in my head, like thinking the more he practices, the luckier he gets.
Obviously so, the more he practices. But the funny thing of it all is that construction, although you practice, everything stays the same every day. But then again, repetition brings perfect, if you can put it, perfection.
Yeah.
And although you'll probably sit down with construction every day and think, I can do stuff better, the basics are still there. Nothing to change about that.
So for me, often on site, I have to tell my guys as well, just remember we're not building a church steeple. But now you have had the privilege of building a wide variety of buildings from as small as a 2-bedroom house or an apartment, all the way up to, in fact, a church steeple.
Yeah, I didn't, in fact, build it, but I'll get to that now. I want to get back to that. When I was a youngster in construction, I had a foreman at that stage, which was my foreman, and he said, Gideon, we are not building clocks or watches, but we do aim to be perfect.
Sure.
So yes, over the span of years, I've been involved in quite a few. The funny thing is that the process stays the same. If I do a square meter of, let's call it an outhouse or an outbuilding or a toilet for that matter, the process is still the same compared to the fact that you will do 1,000 square meter hospital like we've done. And we'll probably get to that later. But yeah, I've been very lucky that way. I've been privileged to the fact that I was involved with quite big developments. I've been involved with hotels, well-known hotels in our area. Yes, as far as the church steeple was concerned, I was tasked by the architect where he called me and says, Gideon, I'm not done running this project. Please come help me. But what it entailed is that over time, the church steeple has degraded as far as structurally and whatever. We had engineers involved. And we came down to the fact that the rough planning was, this is going to be quick. We're going to get a machine. We're going to get guys up there. We're going to inspect and we're going to do what we need to do and come down. So what started off as about a 2-week job ended up in 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Purely because the detail became clearer once we got to the coalface and actually see what the impact was.
Sure.
And the notion is always, while you're there, do it properly, because you're not going to get time to get up there again and spend more time or money.
So in that case, a lot of the detail actually came out as part of the process.
Exactly.
You learned a lot on the project as you went through it.
Exactly
by
that.
covering more and more.
And we were very lucky to have some other architects involved through the architect that we worked with, who actually their job was over the last few amount of years to concentrate on the renovations of.
Sure.
So their input and knowledge was set aside to our side and actually worked well. We could tap into that. And that was quite an experience just because of that.
Yeah.
And the ways and means of getting to a certain product, we from the ground will see a certain type of plastering, and we would see in this case, we would see it seemed like sandstone, which in that case was particularly sandstone, and we all think, okay, this has been all constructed out of solid mono sandstone. Getting up there, and we can delve into this, but getting up there, we realized this was only like a plaster or like a casing on top of that built around a framework of wood. And then we always obviously had water ingress, and that deteriorated that part of the product, the skirts. And we had to take that down. And again, the vast knowledge of this architect that was involved from Cape Town, incidentally, he said, "No, but that's easy. I'll tell you the mix." And he gave us a recipe of.
Wow.
And me and my guys on site, our first reaction was, this is not going to work. Where's the cement? We're so used to having cement in there to make it strong. And obviously, it's just normal lime and sea sand. Sifted sea sand, lime to a certain configuration. You plaster it on, and it aged to the fact that it looks like sandstone. And in actual fact, it's got that structural entities of that.
Wow.
So it becomes sandstone over time. And
was that true to the original construction method?
Exactly that. That's what we saw. Once we took off the damaged parts, we realized this is what they did. Obviously, what we did is we added, let's call it modern to that. They used a normal wire mesh as what we call bird wire.
Yes.
But we went a step further. We took in stainless steel mesh, which, gives a bit of more longevity out of it. And then we constructed that. We replicated the profiles of the scallops around it. One of my guys inside, he actually took the stuff home, a piece, and he measured it out, and he played with it and came back and he said, listen, this is what I've done. I can now actually trace this, and it would measure and fit into the original.
And imitate exactly
what we've had there. That was that was like the wow moment. And bringing me back to that is what construction is. When you get to those wow moments, say, okay, I've actually been involved in this, but I was only a small part of this, because a lot of people around them are involved there. I can carry on this like this
I'm sure
for years.
You have been carrying on for years. It's beautiful to see. And I think in a moment, if we get to more of the lists of pointers that you can give to those that are up and coming in the industry, to potential clients in the industry, to the industry. But ultimately what I see is to do something so in depth and making very big changes to a building.
Yes.
But in essence, looking back or walking away from it and making it look like there was no construction happening there at all. And if you pass that specific church in Mossel Bay now,
always do.
You look and you think, it almost doesn't look like there's been any changes to it, yet there has been.
I could take you back a step back on that.
Yes.
And I've realized that I was a youngster on site. We were busy in Mossel Bay area with quite a big, at that stage I worked for a nice big development company. And we were busy with 83, what they call lodges at that stage. And this is just a bit of history to give you a context of. And I had my late father, your grandfather, for a visit with us in Mossel Bay. And I took him with, as any son should.
Yes.
Having a bit of a boastful moment and telling him how good you are, stuff like that. This is what we do. And being him, I always think, not a perfect person, but always very wise in his acknowledgement and also what he sees.
Yes.
And we got back home and I asked him, okay, Dad, what do you think? He said, you know what? I've been farming for 40 years and the only thing I can show for it is the bit of land that I've got. You guys in construction are so lucky. You do monuments every day.
Yes.
And you know what? At that stage, it clicked in my mind why I do what I do.
Yes.
And ever since that day, I've approached any construction with that mindset of I'm leaving a legacy in a form of a monument. That monument is what's going to be there and it's going to show off whatever you do. So it can be either negative or positive.
Yeah. So no matter where you find yourself in the construction industry, whether you're a service provider to the industry, whether you are like my father in the industry directly himself every day, we all have the ability to create monuments and we all have the ability to leave a legacy for the next generation.
And actually the responsibility.
We have a responsibility.
The responsibility to the trade and to the industry that we're in every day.
Yes, exactly.
And this is, I think, where the conflict is between good and bad, because there's always good and bad in whatever industry. And I think this is the conflict that some people will come up against. I'm not, as a person, I'm not perfect. I'm not the perfect contractor I strive to be. But with that in mind, as long as you try, as long as we strive to, then the industry can be very good to you.
Somewhere along the line, there will be elements of perfection.
And also, sometimes you don't get it right the first time, but you have to be willing and able to go back and say, okay, no, this didn't work, but I'm going to make it work. Yeah. And then I'm lucky to say, yes, that's part of the fact that I'm sitting here and I still, if I can live another 50 years, I'll probably spend another 50 years in construction.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Sure. So, Father Gideon, in our industry, if you had 3 mistakes that you see electrical subcontractors make on a construction site, what would you say they are? And you could probably draw this down to other service providers as well.
Yeah.
But what are those 3 mistakes that electrical subcontractors make on a construction site?
Well, if I can in general then say, having said that about electrical contractors, the main thing I think that any subcontractor does wrong is that they think, don't worry, I know this, I can do this. Prepare for this particular contract. And that takes time beforehand. Plan and prepare. Because although the systems and the process and everything is the same, no 2 construction sites are the same. They never will be. They can't be. I think that's the very first thing. So that takes a bit of homework and a background. And the second point I think I can think off the top of my head is the following, that remember, you as a subcontractor, be it electrician, be it plumber, be it whoever, is only part of a bigger team. So you are not the only contractor there, subcontractor. At stages you're going to be part of 4 or 5 or 6 people or different entities on the same time on the site.
Yes.
Now see this. Me as the main contractor, I see myself as the director of saying, okay, you guys, electrician do that, plumbing do that work. But for me to do that, I need to do my own homework, to sit back behind the scenes and plan this out. That's the second thing any subcontractor should realize. He's part of a bigger team.
Yes.
And he needs to slot in, although you don't want to all the time, slot into the rhythm and the project that the main contractor has set up for you. Subcontractor is welcome to differ from, no, let's do it that. That's where the other part comes in. Planning beforehand, which I do mainly in the background, and then I give the guys through and say, guys, this is my plan. What do you think? So this is the second thing. And then if you go to the third thing I would say is, just remember that whatever you do wrong, which is going to happen, I mean, stuff does happen and things do happen that you don't really want to happen. And it happens. Stand up, acknowledge the fact that you've been wrong and be upfront about it. Sure. Don't try to hide it from ever. Rather come say, listen, we've had a slip up now. There's a problem here.
Yes.
And I tell you now, me as a main contractor, always say, I appreciate that more than anything else.
Yeah. Rather than trying to.
Because 99% of the time what happens when something went wrong and somebody tries to hide it, whoever it might be, it always comes out when? On the day of the final snag. And then what happens?
It's too late.
The main contractor sits with a red face. The architect sits with a red face towards their client. And then what? So I always say, if you've got time to remedy, you can remedy it proper. I think that sort of sums up the three
very good.
things.
Yeah, that's amazing. What would you say is the top 3 mistakes that a client can make in the construction industry?
Don't worry, I can do it myself.
That's
That's number one.
that top one
The top one.
also service providers also make.
Don't worry,
We can do it.
I'll be an owner builder and I'll get it perfect. I'm going to do it cheap
Sure.
and I'll do it perfect because I know. And I've got Google and whoever on my side, and I can do
Dangerous.
that. I've just had it. I'm busy negotiating with the client. And funnily enough, his first words were, "Listen, Gideon, my first time around, I tried this and this doesn't work. So please, can you help me with it?"
Oh.
So I think that's number one. And number two is, and maybe that's a bit of a cross reference, but number two from a client side is the fact that they don't believe the professional people involved, like the engineers and the architects and the QSs and whatever. Mainly, the main problem is always money, budget.
Yes.
So I think this is like a two-pronged one. Why they don't believe that is because the fact they didn't plan properly monetarily to get to that point.
Off with. Yeah.
So get your budget in place, Mr. Client, and realize you need to have a budget and be upfront about your budget.
So then point number 2 there is, as client to the construction industry, get your budget right and trust the professional team on board.
Exactly.
Trust the main contractor and his ability to elect certain service providers and subcontractors.
Exactly that. And trust the fact that usually the architect, the engineer, the QS, whoever the professional team is, when they start collaborating with a contractor like me,
yes,
you can trust the fact this is not the first time.
Yeah.
This is not
and the process is, you can imitate it from one
We've
to
been
the other.
around this block quite a few times. And funnily enough, we've also been around the block with each other in person. Whatever needles might be in the rough edges, we've sort of smoothed them out.
Exactly.
And we take that rough edges away from the client. We make it work in the background, and we give the client a product that he needs because it's his money. We are actually working with his money, but also we are working on our monument to you. So, you
want to be able to leave something behind.
Exactly.
Sure. And number 3, what would you say is the third top point that you can give to homeowners or clients to the electrical and construction industry?
Well, in the construction industry, in the broader sense, and specifically electrical, they must realize technology in advance as we go.
Yes.
Although it also has a point where there are some technologies, and I'm taking a page out of South African construction, that some technologies are only on paper. They are only on the nice to haves and the nice looks, because that's all been edited into a picture.
Yes.
And the ladies always say, "I want this," and I say, "Okay, but this can't work. This can't work because that's not possible." But I think again, for the client to realize, yes, you've got your budget, you know what you want, but please adhere to the fact that the practical output of the team that you have got on board will give you the best. That's why it's critical for the client to decide on the good professional team.
Exactly.
And not take anybody, off the cover somewhere and say, "Okay, this is a guy, he's virtually cheap. He can draw a few lines and I've got a drawing and I can submit that to council and I'm fine. Then I'll run it myself." No. Get a professional architect, get a professional engineer, get a professional QS. Make sure that team elects the better contractor.
Yes, and contractors that are able to supply to your
need. They're able to supply to your need and able and also with the experience. So although I've got no problem with any other contractors, I always say is there's a place for everybody.
Yeah.
But in a certain hierarchy of construction.
Exactly.
But that gets a topic for another day. But I think the final thing on number 3 would be, when you select your team, trust your team. When you select your team, trust your team.
Yeah, you are trusting them with your money, right?
Of course. And big money at that.
You've put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
So you can do it in real life then. So
yeah.
Sure. So maybe then in a So then in summary, we can jump into our last question for the day. And that is, if you had to put together the one key factor of success on any construction site, and that is now to all parties involved, what would you say that is?
Plan, plan and work the plan. The funny thing is we need to plan. But what we don't do, and this is I find many times, and I'm maybe guilty sometimes as well, you plan in the perfect world, but you get to a point where you realize I've now veered from the plan,
Yes.
but I'm carrying on with it. I think the magic word there is whatever the plan is, stick to that. Because once you want to change mid-plan, it takes up more time, it takes up more money, and then you realize I'm actually more off the point now because I've sort of wanted to retry. No, stick with that and stick with that true. Although,
would you then say, if you have a plan, then almost say, if plan A doesn't work, what is our secondary or plan B for any hits or misses that you get along the way?
With that, your bigger plan is there. But I always say, if you plan for the known,
yes,
you would have time to activate and accommodate the unknown.
Yes.
Because the unknown's there. I mean, it rains on a funny day. It usually rains when you want to do concrete. So you plan for a perfect Tuesday morning, and you've got this pump set up and everybody planned out, but then it rains. So what do you do now? Then you have planned for that. So that's the known, that you can get concrete for that day. Yeah. What do you do now? Okay, now the second would be, okay, do we move it on later in the day? Do I do it partly now? Things like that. But what I'm saying is, if you haven't had a bigger plan for the known factors, you wouldn't have time to actually accommodate the unknowns
as they pop up.
Because that's what happens. Yeah. That's unfortunately construction.
And they are unknown.
And they are. That's unfortunately that. Sure. I think that would be the adage to the fact that planning, and it's not a buzzword. It's actually it can be a very mundane thing. But if you plan, you've got in your head. I always say, when I sit down and plan a project, by the time I've planned it straight through from day one till day end, whatever, I've built that building about 3 times my head.
Wow.
So that's part of the planning project.
Yes, exactly.
So that's, I think, with plan.
That's
obviously
amazing. I've known this man for about 31 years of my life, and I'm learning every day. I'm going to say this again. I am privileged to have my father in studio here in real life with me, and what a absolute experience to have chatted together.
What a privilege for me. I can say that we've been jokingly going about this, and I can also say that this young man, I had the privilege of having him on site when he was I think he mentioned it sometimes.
12
years old. I remember I was quite hard on him because he had to do some donkey's work, but that's what construction is, and luckily he stuck to it. And to my mind, I think he's one of the more successful electrical contractors that I know, and I'm very proud and a privilege again to be here. We share the Le Gange deal, the Le Gange pot, the Afrikaans comes through, but the Le Gange pot in our company's names, and it's a privilege to be here. Let's hope it's not the last.
It will definitely not be the last. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what you think. So put something down in the comments and let us know your thoughts, perhaps your questions, and we can answer them in a next episode.